Heather Elvis was born on the 30th of June 1993 in South Carolina to her parents Terry and Debbie. She had one older brother called Christopher and a younger sister called Morgan. She graduated from St. James High School in 2011 and started her waitressing career working for two separate businesses, the House of Blues and the Tilted Kilt in Myrtle Beach. Heather had previously volunteered for a daycare center in a church and had spent time volunteering in Costa Rica with orphan children. Now, as of 2013, she was working for the House of Blues and the Tilted Kilt and was loved by her co-workers and employers. On the 2nd of June 2013, 20-year-old Heather was at her job at the Tilted Kilt when 38-year-old Sidney Moorer walked in. Sidney owned his own maintenance repair business, repairing industrial equipment, and had been hired by the Tilted Kilt to be their repair worker. When Heather met Sidney that day, she started to develop feelings for him and tweeted about him that night, writing, "The guy who builds things at my job makes me cream myself tonight." Each time Sidney came to the tiled kilt to repair something, he would flirt with Heather, and over time, they spent more and more time together, and he would bring her food and drinks. And in July of 2013, Heather changed her relationship status on Facebook to "in a relationship." And she continued tweeting about them both. One tweet said, "One of these days I will drag that man into the mop closet and have my way with him. Lord have mercy." The only problem was that Sidney was married with kids, which Heather had known about. Tammy Moorer found out Sidney was cheating on her in October 2013 and started to harass Heather through constant texts and calls. Some texts sent by Tammy to Heather read, "You want to call me right now and explain yourself? It would be the wise thing to do. Save yourself. I'm giving you one last chance to answer before we meet in person, only one. Hey sweetie, you ready to meet the missus? The kids want to meet you. Someone's about to get their ass beat down." Tammy would also send pictures of herself and Sidney having sex to Heather's phone and would beat and attack Sidney numerously for his affair. She also began handcuffing Sidney to their bed at night, and witnesses saw him restrained there. Tammy went on to change the password to Sidney's phone and didn't give him the password to it, and forced him to get a tattoo of her name on his lower stomach. Despite all of this, Sidney chose to stay with Tammy and work on their marriage, and by November, any communication between Sidney and Heather stopped. Trying to make their marriage work, they both went to Disneyland with their kids on the 19th of November and stayed for almost a month, returning home on the 11th of December, and whilst they were there, they stopped harassing Heather, so she managed to move on with her life and became happy again. But her friends and co-workers noticed how Heather was putting on weight, and she had to change her bra size for her work uniform when it went up 3 times in a few weeks, and everyone thought she was pregnant. Heather then tweeted, "Prego my ego." When Heather was at work one day, she took a pregnancy test but got an error result as it was a faulty test, and after this, she didn't take another one. By early December, she moved in with her friend and co-worker, Brianna, in an apartment in Myrtle Beach. On the 17th of December 2013, Heather was going on a date with a man named Stephen. At the time, Brianna was away, so Heather was alone. That day, she went to her parents' house to collect her post, and later at 7 p.m., she was picked up by Stephen, who drove her to a restaurant called Banditos where they ate and went to watch some Christmas lights. They both went to a nearby car park at 10:30 p.m. so Stephen could teach her to drive, and she sent a picture of herself using the car to her dad, Terry, at 10:43 p.m. As he was driving her home at 1:30 a.m., Tammy and Sidney were seen on CCTV. Sidney went into a Walmart and bought a pregnancy test, and then they both drove away from the car park in their Ford F-150 and drove to a gas station where Sidney was then seen on CCTV walking across the road to a payphone. By now, Heather was at home, and her cell phone data showed she received a call from a payphone that lasted 5 minutes. As soon as the call ended, she called her roommate, Brianna, hysterically crying, and told her how Sidney just rang her asking to see her. Brianna advised her not to go and meet Sidney. At 2:30 a.m., Heather tried calling the payphone 9 times but got no answer. Between 2:42 a.m. and 2:56 a.m., her phone pinged at Longbeard's Bar and Restaurant in Carolina Forest, and 14 minutes after this, her phone pinged towards Augusta Plantation Drive, and she then turned around, returning to Longbeard's bar and restaurant at 3:01 a.m. At 3:16 a.m., she tried calling Sidney again, but he didn't answer, so she went back to her apartment. Back in her flat, she called his number again, and this time someone answered and the call lasted for 4 minutes and 16 seconds. After ending this call, she drove down to an isolated area called Peachtree Boat Landing in Myrtle Beach at 3:33 a.m. Sidney and Tammy's car was seen 3 minutes later on residential CCTV driving from the direction of their home towards Peachtree Landing. Heather tried calling them 2 more times, then all activity on her phone stopped at 3:42 a.m. Tammy and Sidney's car was seen 3 minutes later on CCTV driving away from Peachtree Landing towards their house. The next day, her dad Terry was worried when he didn't hear from Heather, so he contacted the police and they managed to locate her abandoned car at Peachtree Landing. Her phone was not found in the car. A missing persons report was filed and searches took place around Peachtree Landing, but nothing was found. Police looked into Stephen, the guy she had gone on a date with that night, but they managed to clear him as a suspect. Police began looking into Sidney and Tammy after hearing about the affair and how they had harassed Heather. They found that Sidney's phone pinged in the same location where her car was found abandoned. They brought them both in for questioning. They asked him why his phone had pinged in the same location as Heather, and he first claimed that it must be a mistake. Then he changed his story and said he went there to have sex with his wife. They had CCTV of him using the payphone to call Heather that night, but they didn't tell him and they wanted to see if he would be honest with them, so when they asked him if he made the call to her, he denied it but admitted it was him when he found out they had CCTV footage of him, and said he only called her to ask that she leave him alone, and he claimed he bought the pregnancy test from Walmart for Tammy. In February 2014, Sidney made allegations to the police that he was being harassed by Heather's parents, and Tammy started writing posts on Facebook claiming they were being harassed by Terry and calling Heather a psycho whore. One of her posts said, "Well, Sidney cheated on me with a psycho whore who has since went missing, and now her crazy daddy is threatening to kill my children and Sidney." This girl grabbed his business card out of the office and had fantasies about him. All you have to do is research this girl's Twitter to see what a twisted person she truly is. I could care less seeing that I had a boyfriend of my own for the past couple of years, but when someone brings my children into the scenario, it's a whole other story. I will not tolerate anyone hurting my children because my husband banged a hoe 3 times in the backseat of her car. I could care less what he screwed around with, but the fact this jerk is stalking my family is unacceptable. Terry then made a report that 2 men in a black Jeep drove past his workplace yelling Heather was first, Morgan is next. On the 21st of February 2014, police executed a search warrant on Tammy and Sidney's house. Inside they found guns and moldy food. After searching their home for 11 hours, they came across evidence causing them to arrest them and charged them both with kidnap, murder and 2 counts of indecent exposure. They were initially denied bond and a judge issued a gag order, limiting the information that could be shared with the public and prohibiting them from talking to the media. In January, they were released on a $100,000 bond and ordered to wear GPS monitoring devices, and after their release, a judge granted them permission to move to Florida but stated they both had to return for their trials.
Actually buying it for my wife. She was in the vehicle when I bought it for her. She took it that night. And it was negative like so many before and after.
Sidney Moore spoke exclusively with our sister station WBTW on Tuesday after testimony wrapped up. There's a gag order in the case, but he says he wanted to speak because of his wife. Moore says that he and his wife Tammy had been trying to get pregnant for a long time, and that night isn't the only time he could have been seen buying a pregnancy test, he says. We asked Moore if he thought the statements and new video would be trouble for him.
Not really so much damaging as, I guess, maybe leading the jury into something to maybe try to get them to believe something that's not so.
Moore says his wife eventually did get pregnant but lost the baby. He says he feels like she was brought into the case against her will. Moore says if Heather Elvis was pregnant, it's biologically impossible the baby was his.
By the 10th of March 2016, their murder charges were dropped and now they were only facing charges for kidnap, Medicaid fraud and obstruction of justice in regards to Sidney making false statements to the police. Their first trial for the kidnapping charge began in June 2016 and lasted for 5 days, which ended in a mistrial. At that trial, Sidney was sentenced to 5 months for breaking the gag order when he spoke to the media about the case, and once he was released, Sidney made allegations against Terry, Heather's father, on Facebook, saying Terry was involved, and made allegations that Terry done something to Heather when she was 4 and claims he had reason to get rid of Heather. Police found no evidence at all that any of these claims were true. In August 2017, Sidney appeared in court to face charges for obstruction of justice from lying to the police about making the payphone call. He was found guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison. In April 2018, both Tammy and Sidney were indicted on 1 count of conspiracy to kidnap Heather Elvis.
Okay, and when you worked there, did you work with Heather Elvis?
I did.
And would you recognize the picture of her?
Yes, I would.
Okay, I'm going to show you now what the state's marked as State's Exhibit 2. You recognize this young lady?
I do.
Okay, and who is it?
Heather Elvis.
You know, at this time, Your Honor, the state wishes to put State's Exhibit 2 into evidence and publish it to the jury.
No objection. No objection.
Thank you, Judge. Now, how did you know this young lady?
She was a hostess at the Tulsa Kill.
Okay, and why was she old enough to wait tables?
She could wait tables, yes.
Okay, could she serve alcohol?
She could serve it, but she couldn't pour it.
Okay, and was she under 21?
She was.
Okay, and how old was Heather? Do you remember?
I believe she was 19.
Okay, and how long had she worked at Tilted Kill?
It was a year and a half.
Okay, and was she a full-time employee?
She worked full-time hours during the summer, yes.
Now, let me ask you something. While she worked there, did she ever strike up a relationship with another employee or somebody that worked at the Tilted Kill?
Like dating-wise?
Yes.
Not an employee, no.
Okay, and did she ever have an occasion to meet this defendant while she was at the Tilted Kill?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now explain what the defendant did at Tilted Kill.
He was hired as a maintenance man. He would come in after working hours, so 11:30 to 12:30, depending on business, and he would do whatever he was asked to do, putting up hooks for purses at the bar, anything that was broken, and then he'd be gone by the time the opening manager came in.
Okay, so he wasn't like a regular employee that have on a uniform.
No, he was contracted.
Okay, contractor that came in and would fix whatever you need.
Correct.
Okay, and how long did you know him?
About 6 months.
Okay, and is that what he did at Tilted Kill?
Yes.
Okay, now tell me what, if any, relationship was between the defendant and Heather Elvis?
They seemed like just friends in the beginning, and then it evolved after.
Okay, and tell me about how it evolved from there.
He would bring her in tea and bagels or coffee on days that during the day, for one, and days he wasn't working when she worked during the day.
Okay, and to your knowledge, what was the relationship between the two of them?
It was a sexual relationship.
Okay, and how do you know that?
She had her phone charging in the office, and it was going off constantly while I was doing the scheduling. And I finally grabbed it to see who it was, thought maybe there was an emergency, and it was the defendant texting her.
Okay, and what were the text messages indicating?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Were those text messages from this defendant, Sidney Moore?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained under 602.
Well, Your Honor, it's...
Under 602, she relations can establish how she knows it.
Oh, sure, Judge. How did you know the messages were from Sidney?
Excuse me, unless I had a finished ruling, because anything that discloses it now, it has to be hearsay because she's reading from the text. Thank you.
The hearsay would be party
I
upon.
just ruled, Celesta, you lay your foundation if you want to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Miss Cook, when you were looking at her phone, who was texting her that you saw?
Sustained, Celesta.
Let me ask you something. When you had that phone, what were you doing with it? Just charging it?
Yes, I was charging it for her.
Okay, but she was always nearby, close to the phone.
Correct.
Okay, now let me ask you something. Tell me a little bit about, we've talked about how old Heather Elvis was. About how old was Sidney Moore at that time?
Honestly, I don't know, I guess upper 30s.
Okay. And did you know he was married?
I did.
Okay. Did you ever see his wife?
No,
Okay. So she never came to work with him while he was at Tilted Kill.
not that I saw, no.
Okay. And do you know if he had any kids?
Yes,
Okay. And how many kids did he have?
3.
Okay. Did you know where he lived?
No, I knew he lived in the area.
Okay. Now, let me ask you something. During the time this relationship was going on and he was bringing her coffee, he was bringing her bagels, coming to see him, even when he wasn't working, did at some point that relationship end?
It did.
Tell me about that.
It was mid to late October. I came into work and Heather was freaking out. She was very distraught, nervous. Found out later that 2 of the girls had played a prank phone call to work saying that it was Mrs. Moore and that she had found out that her and Sidney were having an affair. So she wanted to leave, we let her leave. After that, she said that there was no relationship and they had broken up.
And about when did that happen?
It was late October, early November.
And let me ask you something. Was she afraid of Sidney's wife, Tammy?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Tell me what, if any, changes you saw in her close in time to this breakup.
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis of objection.
Tell me a little bit, you've told me about her physical changes. Tell me, did you see anything mentally? How was her demeanor after this breakup?
After the breakup, she was sad. She eventually started coming back to her joking and laughing and normal self that we knew.
Okay. Now, when she started gaining weight, clearly, if you're having to reorder a uniform, this is a visible change. To your knowledge, did she ever take a pregnancy test?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
She did it at work while I was there.
And did you see the pregnancy test?
I did.
And what did it say? What was the reading?
It read error.
Okay. And did you know what that meant?
I didn't. I went and looked it up on the computer at work.
Okay. But you actually saw the test that she had taken?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so clearly this was a concern.
Correct.
How did she act when she brought you this test that said error?
She didn't know what it meant. She was trying to figure out, obviously, if she was pregnant or not, and she was very confused as to why it would say error.
Okay. Did she appear like she had taken a pregnancy test before?
No.
Objection.
Stay.
Ms. Cook, I understand that at the time Heather Elvis went missing, you'd known her for about a year and a half, is that correct?
Around that time, yes.
Okay. And how old were you around that time when she went missing? I'm sorry, it's probably not.
33,
Okay.
34.
All right. So you were older than her in other
Yes.
words. Okay. And I kind of get the impression from your testimony that this was sort of a.
Your Honor, if I may, I'm sorry. Can Mr. Bouchette move just a little in one direction? So I'm having trouble hearing the witness because he's between me and the witness.
If you want to move, so you can see, that's fine. If you want to come up closer, you can
Okay,
come up closer.
I'll move
Is
in.
this okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. I'm sorry. I get the impression from your testimony that the relationship between you and her was sort of maybe a big sister, little sister type relationship. Would that be an accurate description?
Somewhat, yes. That's the way it was with all the girls.
Okay. All right. And you obviously spent a lot of time together at work, correct?
We were both always at work, yes.
Okay. And I believe she even lived with you at your home at some point in 2013. Is that
She
correct?
stayed with me for a few days, yes.
Okay. Now, do you know approximately when that was that she lived with you?
It was springtime. I couldn't give you a date.
And what were the circumstances that led to her ultimately living with you?
She was staying in her car.
Okay. Did she ever, or do you have any personal knowledge as to what led her to be living in her car?
All I know was there was an argument at home and she wasn't staying there.
To your knowledge, was that the only time that she had resided in her car during the year of 2013?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, how long did she stay with you?
2-3 days.
Okay. Do you remember where she went after that?
I don't.
Okay. Now, were you aware of an individual named Jeremy Fleming?
I've heard of him, yes. I think I met him once.
Okay. Was he a former manager at the House of Blues?
Your Honor,
to your knowledge?
I'm just going to object to whether or not she really indeed has personal knowledge or is this
Just
just
testify to
hearsay?
that. Appreciate it. You can cross it, you can can redirect that solicitor. She can just.
Sidney was not attempting to keep it secret, correct?
No.
He said he would show up, bring her some coffee, bring her some food from time to time, correct? All right. Now, at some point we know that his wife found out, and you said that the breakup, at least to the best of your observation, occurred in somewhere around mid-October, late October?
Late October, early November, around there.
Okay. And at that point, Sidney stopped doing his various jobs at the Tilted Kilt?
Correct.
Okay. So is it safe to say that to the best of your knowledge, Sidney had no communication, at least that he initiated with her, between the first part of November and December 17th of 2013?
Best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. There were no, you also referenced there was this incident where apparently Heather got upset over what she thought was phone calls from Sidney's wife, Tammy. Is that correct?
One phone call, yes.
Okay, it was one phone call?
Yes.
All right, but that was not actually Miss Moore, correct?
Correct.
In fact, those were the girls at the Tilted Kilt sort of playing a prank on her.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. And Tammy never came to the restaurant, correct?
Not that I saw with my eyes, no.
Okay. So it's safe to say everything is clearly over by December of 2013 between Sidney and Heather.
Yes.
Wait right here for me. Please raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, please state your full name and spell your last name. Speaking to me.
Jody Davenport, Davenport.
And Ms. Davenport, if you don't mind, tell this jury how old you are and if you're married, have any kids.
I am 30, I am married, and I have children, yes.
And where do you currently live?
I just moved to Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Okay, and at one time, did you live here in Horry County?
Yes,
And
for
tell
30
this
years.
jury when you lived in Horry County.
I just moved back in July, so I lived here my whole life.
Okay, so for your whole life until you moved to Asheville. Okay, and at some point, did you work at the Tilted Kilt?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you don't mind, tell them when you worked at the Tilted Kilt.
I worked at Tilted Kilt for 2 years.
Okay, and when you worked there, we just heard from Jessica Cook. Did you work with her?
Yes.
Okay, and was she also your manager or supervisor?
Yes.
Okay, and did Heather Elvis also work at Tilted Kilt?
Yes.
Okay, now let me ask you something. During the time that she was there at Tilted Kilt, tell me about your knowledge about the relationship between her and the defendant, Sidney Moore.
Over the summer, I started, hearing little tidbits from her about her seeing him, and it progressed over the next few months, and then it stopped in October, around the end of October.
Okay, and did you ever see him visiting her during the day shift?
I did see him a few times bring her bagels and coffee during the day shift.
Okay, so he would come see her even when he wasn't working?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during that time frame, to your knowledge, was she dating anybody else?
No.
Did you see any other men coming to visit her during the day like men do, just to be thoughtful to bring something to drink or eat?
No.
Okay. Now, at the time you were working there, was Dennis Hart Sr. also working there?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, was there ever any kind of sexual relationship between her and Dennis Hart?
No.
Okay. To your knowledge, was there ever any kind of sexual relationship between her and any other male employee there at the
Not to my
Tilted
knowledge,
Kilt?
no.
Okay. Now, I want to go back. You were telling me that the relationship ended, I think you said the end of October, beginning of November? Okay. Tell me about how she appeared physically and mentally once this relationship ended.
She was really distraught. I know that she had been receiving some text messages from his wife, and she was really scared and upset. It was very obvious.
Okay, and this relationship between the two of them had gone on from the summer until, let's say, end of October, November.
Yes, ma'am.
So from about July, August, September, October, maybe 4 or 5 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there was some time under the belt.
Yes.
Okay. Now, was she afraid of his wife, Tammy Moore?
Yes.
And earlier, you weren't in here, but it was discussion or talk about a prank that was played on her. Do you know anything about that?
I remembered hearing about it.
Okay. And that prank involved Tammy Moore?
Some of the girls were pretending to be her, as far as I know.
Okay. And how did Heather react to that?
She was scared. She ended up going home that day.
Okay. Okay. Now let me ask you this. You told me a little bit about her demeanor after the breakup. She clearly was upset. This relationship had been going on for several months.
Yes.
Did you notice any physical changes in her?
Yes.
Tell the jury about those physical changes.
She had put on weight. We had uniforms that were very tight-fitting, and the whole first, year and a half that we worked together, we wore the same size uniform, and she had to go up, in her top. And it was actually part of the uniform to wear a bra, and she had to go up in the bra size as well. She just looked like a little bit of weight was on.
Okay, and
kind of all over.
okay, so she was gaining weight.
Yes.
Okay, now, do you know whether or not she took a pregnancy test?
I do.
And how do you know that?
She actually took a pregnancy test before we opened the restaurant one morning when we were all opening the restaurant together.
Okay, and did you see the test?
Yes.
And what was the result?
It said error.
Okay. Now, when was the last time you saw this young lady before she went missing?
I believe it was a day or two before she went missing. It was her last shift that she worked. We worked together.
So it was the last time y'all had worked together?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, was it resolved whether or not she was pregnant?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, so nobody knew for sure either way?
Yes.
Okay. Had she ever shown up to work with any bruising or injuries on her?
I did see her with a black eye.
And when was that?
It was sometime in between the breakup in October and her going missing in December. I can't tell you an exact date.
Okay. So it was sometime between the breakup and when?
And when she went missing in December.
Okay. Had she ever, prior to that, before she had gotten involved with Sidney and they had broken up and there was, this fear of Tammy, before that, had there ever been any injuries to her that you saw?
No.
And you said earlier the outfit for Tilted Kilt was a kind of a tie, little tie?
Yes, ma'am.
And a little kilt?
Yes, ma'am.
So you could see a lot of skin?
You could see the midriff area and from the knee to the upper thigh.
Okay. And all up here, of course?
Yes.
Okay. And you had never seen her have any injuries until after all this unfolded?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, do you have any knowledge who caused those injuries?
No.
Okay. Do you know why? Do you have any knowledge why she was so afraid of Tammy Moore?
I know from talking to her about the whole situation that, in her opinion, she was crazy. Well, she actually used the words crazy bitch.
Okay. So she was definitely felt like there was something to be afraid of.
Yes.
My name is Brianna Warrelman, Warrelmann.
Where were you working in 2013?
Tilted Kilt.
Okay. Now earlier, you weren't in here, but we met Jessica Cook and Jody Davenport. Do you know those two ladies?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know them?
One was a co-worker, another server, that's Joe, and Jess was our supervisor.
Okay. And so those were all people you worked with at Tilted Kilt?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, do you know Heather Elvis?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you work with her at Tilted Kilt?
Yes.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury so they know, what was your relationship with Heather Elvis?
She was my best friend, and she also was my roommate.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind, tell this jury when y'all became close friends.
We became really close June of 2013.
Okay. And when did she move in with you?
Right before Thanksgiving of 2013.
Okay. So November of 2013?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she continue to live with you?
Yes.
Until she went missing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But y'all were close friends way before then, or at least a few months?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during the time of June, August, September, that time frame before she had moved in, was she seeing anybody at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she have a boyfriend?
Yes.
Who was she?
Sidney Moore.
Okay. And do you know Sidney?
From work, yes.
Okay. And could you identify him?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he in the courtroom now?
Yes, ma'am.
Point him out.
Right there.
Okay. And that's the man she was seeing during that time frame.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, at some point, did that relationship end?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during the time she was seeing him, was she seeing anybody else?
No.
Okay. Now, did you work with Sidney Twosome at Tilted Kilt or know him from Tilted Kilt?
Yes, ma'am. He would do like the maintenance stuff around the restaurant.
Okay, so he would be there when you were there at times.
Yes.
And what would he be doing, or what was kind of his job responsibility?
Fixing things, building things. He built like an umbrella cart to carry the umbrellas in and out of the restaurant.
Okay. And he was kind of the maintenance guy.
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever talk with him?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And do you know at the time if he was married?
Yes.
And was he married?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you know at the time if he had any kids?
Yes.
And did he have kids?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Now, when they were seeing each other, did you ever see him come visit her at work?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and tell this jury about that.
He would come in, visit her at the hostess stand, bring coffee, food, bagels.
And so you would see them interact together.
Yes.
Tell this jury what that looked like at that time.
They were flirtatious. It was supposed to be a secret, but everybody at the Tilted Kilt knew about it.
Okay. So he would come in and bring her stuff in front of everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there was a time when that relationship ended, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and about when was that?
I want to say October of 2013.
Okay, towards the end of October?
Yes.
Okay. How was she when that relationship ended?
She was devastated.
Okay. And how long did it take before she started getting over that relationship or that breakup?
It was about the time that she started to move in with me, was when she started being happy again and going back to her happy self.
Okay. So several weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you know about how long her and Sidney had a relationship?
It was at least a couple months. It started right when her and I started to get close, so like June.
Okay. So in June, they were already seeing each other?
Yes.
Or at least starting
to, I think.
Okay. And around the end of October it ends?
Right.
Okay. Now, you told this jury kind of mentally how she was after the breakup. Did you see any changes in her physically?
She had gained weight because she would run around the house talking about how she had to buy new Victoria's Secret bras, which are not cheap.
Okay. And so she had to get a bigger bra size?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she have to get a bigger size at work as well?
She had to get new clothes at work, and she had to get new clothes in general. We would go shopping for her.
Okay. And did she ever lose that weight before she went missing?
No.
Okay. Now, there were some questions asked earlier, and I want to ask you. Was there a question about whether or not she was pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. And was that question resolved prior to her going missing?
No.
So nobody really knows if she was or she wasn't?
No idea.
Okay. Now, tell me a little bit about y'all's living arrangements. Did she have her own room, or what was that situation?
It was a 2-bedroom apartment, but the landlord had her master bedroom locked for when she would come down, her things would be there. So Heather technically resided on the couch, which was a pull-out bed, but she usually just slept on the couch, or she stayed in my bed. We did unlock the bedroom when she moved in, the master bedroom, because she had too much stuff, so we just placed it in the room.
So it was a 2-bedroom apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, tell me if you were at the apartment the night of December 17th.
I was not.
And why not?
I was in Florida visiting my father and my grandmother, who was in the hospital.
Okay. Now, when did you leave town?
The Monday before, so it would have been the 16th, I believe.
Okay. And you left to go back home?
Yes, back to New Jersey.
Okay. Had Heather, prior to that, ever stayed at y'all's apartment by herself for several days?
No.
Okay, so this was the first time since moving there she had been by herself in the apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a little bit about when was the last time you spoke with Heather Elvis?
1:44 in the morning on December 18th, 2013.
Now, she called you that morning, early morning, 1:44 a.m. Where were you at that time?
I was in Florida,
Okay, and why were you in Florida?
visiting my dad and my grandmother.
Okay, to your knowledge, was anybody in the apartment other than Heather?
No.
Objection on speculation.
Sustained, so too.
Pass that, her response, Mr. Richard.
Well, jury disregarded the response.
Ms. Wyman, how did she sound on the phone?
She was very upset.
Okay, and did you hear anybody in the background?
No, I did not.
And when you say very upset, was she crying?
She was hysterically crying.
And was this a very long conversation that you had with her?
No, it was not.
Okay. And at the time, to your knowledge, you know where she was?
I was told she was at home.
Now, you can't tell me what she said, but what did you say to her in response to what she told you?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the basis?
I think the question is going to call for that hearsay that Ms. Lassie's trying to get around.
Tell what she reacted to, or overrule that objection. As long as it doesn't deal with any response to what Heather Elvis said. She can tell what she said.
Ms. Wyman, if you don't mind, tell this jury what you told Heather Elvis that night, the last thing you told her.
The last thing I said to her was to not meet Sidney, go to sleep, and we would talk about it in the morning.
And that's the last time you ever talked to her?
Yes, ma'am.
It is. And the time you lived with her, and the time you worked with her, did she ever look afraid of Sidney Moore?
No, ma'am.
Did she, during this time frame, you worked with her every day, you were seeing her every day, living with her, did she ever appear afraid of his wife, Tammy Moore?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when y'all worked at Tilted Kill, did you ever talk to Sidney Moore?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did he ever talk about Heather to you?
Briefly.
Okay, and what did he say?
I told him not to hurt her one day in the kitchen.
What did he say?
I'm not, and then walked away.
Do you know Heather's parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you meet them in the course of y'all living together?
Yes.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about her relationship with her parents.
Well, we went to her parents' house the weekend beforehand because I wanted to learn how to play guitar. So we went there and everything was fine. When we went there, we sat in the living room, we watched videos, we talked about Morgan was just in a play, I think it was, that night. Everything was fine. I had heard from Heather that, you know, she didn't always make decisions that her parents agreed with prior to that.
Let me ask you something. Did Heather have a tattoo?
She had a few.
Okay. And did she like to go out and have a good time?
Yes, she did.
And she was kind of free-spirited.
Very free-spirited.
Was she 21 yet?
No, she was not.
Okay. So there was kind of that tug that a lot of teenagers have with their parents.
Yes.
And that's kind of what she had going on with her parents.
Yes.
She's trying to break away.
Yes.
Was that her dad's car she was driving, that Dodge Intrepid?
I believe so.
Okay. So she was kind of at that weird place, wanting to be independent, but couldn't quite financially get to that place.
Correct.
We've all been there.
Will Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H.
And Mr. Lynch, if you don't mind, tell this jury where you're currently employed.
Currently, I'm employed with the City of North Myrtle Beach Department of Public Safety.
And how long have you been with North Myrtle Beach?
I've been employed with North Myrtle Beach for 25 years.
Okay, and what are your current responsibilities?
Currently, I'm assigned to the investigations divisions there at the city.
Okay, and let me ask you this. What were you doing in 2013?
In 2013, I was assigned to a multi-jurisdictional drug task force, the 15th Circuit Drug Enforcement Unit, and I was actually stationed at an office here in Conway.
Okay, and what were your responsibilities when you worked at what's known as the DEU?
So when I was with the DEU, our main responsibility was to focus on mid to upper level narcotics activity, and also I was assigned to do what they called dumping cell phones or cell phone extractions as well.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury what a cell phone extraction is.
So a cell phone extraction is basically pulling the information off of a cell phone or really any type of portable media device. It could be an iPad, something of that nature, a GPS unit, and they even do drones now. But it's just basically pulling that information off a cell phone. It's kind of like when you go to the cell phone store to get a new cell phone, they actually have their version of our machine that will transfer your data from your old cell phone to your new cell phone. So it's basically the same process, except the machine that we use is for law enforcement, and it pulls a little more information than your typical one that you may get at the phone store.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, instead of your version, instead of moving the information from one phone to another, it pulls the information and puts it in a report form.
It does. It pulls it from the cell phone onto some type of media device, whether it's a thumb drive or an external hard drive, and then that information is then run in another part of the program, which generates a report, a readable report.
Celebrate allows you to actually collect the contents of the text messages, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and sometimes when somebody calls and leaves a voicemail, you can listen to the voicemail.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's basically kind of like having the phone right in front of you.
That's correct.
Okay, and the time frame that we've been talking about in here encompasses kind of late October, early November.
Okay.
Were you able to collect the contents of text messages from Mr. Moore's phone during that time frame?
Late October, November, yes.
Okay, and the other time frame we've been talking a lot about is December 17th and 18th of 2013. Were you able to collect what was going on the phone during that time frame?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, now tell this jury, sometimes people delete messages off their phone. Does this report tell us if that message had been deleted or not?
It does. So when you create the report, it puts the information in columns, and one of the columns specifically is a column labeled deleted or DEL, and it will usually put a red X or something to note that this information was deleted off the phone.
Okay, now when you look down the column, just so this crowd will know what they're looking for, were all of them deleted?
No, not everything was deleted.
Okay, were some of them deleted?
Yes.
So you'd have a couple that weren't, then you'd have one that was, then a couple that wasn't?
Correct.
Okay.
1:30 a.m. on the 2nd of November, there is a incoming text message or SMS message from this number right here, 1-843-997-8152, and the person that sent this says Sidney.
And Mr. Lynch, it's already been put into evidence that that number belongs to Heather Elvis.
Yes.
Keep you from having to repeat the number.
All right, thank you. So then once this message comes through to 843-385-3175, the phone responds. Right after that, it
1:46 a.m., and it goes to this number, which is Heather Elvis's number, and they respond, yeah, and then they respond again, what's up? They respond again, and just track, 4 hours, it'll be 1:20. Excuse me, I'm about to back up. This is at 12:30, subtract 4 hours. This is 12:30, 12:46, 12:47, and then 1:20 in the morning. So then they say, who the fuck is this? And then they say, again at 1:23, why would you fucking text me at 12:30 and not respond? Which they're talking about this original text right here, 12:30. Why would you fucking text me at 12:30 and not respond? And then later on that day, on the 2nd of November, so you'll subtract 4 hours, it'll actually be 8:37 a.m. What in the world? So Heather's phone responds, what in the world? And then Heather responds again, sorry, my phone was fucking up all night, out, wouldn't let me answer calls, and then it just froze. But you've got some explaining to do. And then Sidney's phone responds right after that, why is that? It responds again, who is this? And then from Heather's phone it says, nobody you need to worry about anymore. And then the message goes back to Heather's phone, you want to call me right now and explain yourself. It would be the wise thing to do. So we're still, with these messages, we're still minus 4 hours. So again, this would be at 9:38 in the morning. And then after that, there's a message. It's an instant message. It says, what? So then there's again, this would be on the 3rd of November at 12:21 a.m. So we'll have to subtract 4 hours. So we're actually going to go back till November 2nd at 9:21 p.m. There's a message from Heather's phone. It says, so when does Sidney get his phone back? And then the responding message about an hour and a half later says, this is him, but we can't talk anymore.
Okay, do these messages continue on between Heather and Sidney's phone?
Yes, they do.
If you don't mind, tell us about those.
Okay.
Now, before we start going through the messages, what does this indicate over here?
So this is the column over here where it would show that the message has been deleted from the cell phone. So anything that has the yes along that message is showing that it was actually deleted from the cell phone. These were not deleted, but there's nothing there.
And Celebrite is sometimes able to collect the deleted information.
It does. It can't collect all of it, but
right.
Sometimes it collects a pretty good amount of it. Okay, so we'll go back down here to November 3rd. Well, it says 1:57 a.m., but you're going to have to subtract 4 hours, so you go back to November 2nd at 9:57 p.m., and it's a message from Heather's phone. It says, can you just call me for a minute? And then right after that, less than a minute, 30 seconds, it says no. Heather gets a message that says, no, I love family. Heather responds, ha, okay. And then phone from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone says, sorry, I made a mistake. Again, Heather responds, you knew what you were doing, it was no mistake. I understand this can't go on anymore. I just want to know that your wife isn't going to show up at my job. She also goes on by saying, because I lost hours today because they sent me home after she kept calling. And then the message comes to Heather's phone that says, she doesn't care about you, it's fine, she has a boyfriend. Also goes on to say, she was just mad at me for lying. And then the message also comes to Heather's phone that says, wants me to take some tests to make sure I didn't catch anything from you. Heather's phone responds, then why does this have to end if she's got a boyfriend? Stop being such a pushover and letting her control you. And then it responds back to Heather, I can't do it anymore, it's not right. And then Heather responds, yeah, okay. And then again, Sidney's phone responds back to Heather's phone, what did you want to talk about? And message back from Heather's phone says, I think you're a little obsessed with me. Sidney's phone responds, nah, it was a bore. And then there's another message to Heather's phone that says, if you want to speak to me now, call me. If you want to speak to me, call now. Otherwise, leave me alone forever. And then Heather responds back, really? So that's why you're still childishly texting me from your cheating husband's phone. And then Sidney's phone responds back to Heather, call the number, it's me. And then Heather responds back, you call.
Now, let me ask you something. The messages that were deleted are the ones when Heather says, I think you're a little obsessed with me, and Sidney's phone is saying, look, call me, call me. Are those all deleted?
Right.
Okay.
And those are all, these have all been deleted.
Okay. And did this conversation continue on?
It did.
Okay.
All right, so this is November 3rd, and at this point in time, we're going to be subtracting 5 hours from here. So this would be at 2:08 in the morning, and then there's a message that's going to Heather's phone that says nah, and then this is on the 4th, correction, this would be November 3rd at 12:05, 11:05, I believe, 11:05 p.m. that says Sidney, and then responds back from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone, what? Sidney's phone responds back to Heather's phone, your skank ass needs to leave me alone. And then it responds again. Right after that, to Heather's phone, stop stalking me, you crazy fucking whore. And then we're talking about a day later, a little longer than a day, on the 5th of November. So we're down again. We're going to start from the bottom and go to the top. And these are messages again from Sidney's phone number, 385-3175. This would be at 1:40 in the morning on the 16th. And it says, my pussy is so wet for you, Caleb. And then right after that, about 3 minutes, there is a message that says, ha ha, smiley face, well, I'll text you tomorrow night. And then a message from Sidney's phone that says, okay, baby. Another message from Sidney's phone that says, sweet dreams. There's another message right after that from Sidney's phone that says, I will take one last pic, if that's okay. And there's another message from Sidney's phone that's just 5 hearts. And then there's a message 12 seconds after that that says, that's fine. And then there's a message from Sidney's phone that says, heart, I want you so bad. And then right after that, there's another message from Sidney's phone that says, Caleb, with a question mark. And then about 2 hours later, there's another message from Sidney's phone that says, going to sleep. Can you send a pic in the morning so I have it when I wake up, XOXO. And then there's another message from Sidney's phone that says, I am in love, sissy.
And do these messages continue on?
They do.
And these are on what date and time when you converted?
So starting down here at the bottom, these were on December 16th, and you have to subtract 5 hours at this point, so it'll be 1:40 in the morning, and they continue on. Here's 1:48, and then there's a little jump here, and this would be 3:33 in the morning, and again 3:33 in the morning.
And were they all deleted?
Yes, they were.
Okay, and do these messages continue on into the 17th?
Yes, they do.
If you don't mind, let's see some of those messages.
Okay, so then you'll subtract 5 hours, be 2:04 in the morning. There's a MMS message. MMS is basically a multimedia type message. Is when you send a message, typically that has an attachment like a picture or something like that. So it looks like there is a multimedia message sent from Sidney's phone, it's just blank, which is an indication that it's probably a picture that was sent at that time. There's another SMS message right after that that says, "That boy is fucking hot." And there's an instant message from Sidney's phone. Again, there's nothing there, possibly a picture. Then there's an instant message again, and this would be, still be on the 16th at 11:13 p.m. It says, "Well, that's good, and if you say so." There's another instant message right after that from Sidney's phone. It just says, "I just had someone cheat on me that I thought was my soulmate. You never know who will screw you over in life. I felt totally betrayed, but I said, fuck it. He's a piece of shit, and I'm better off without the liar." And then 30 seconds after that, there's another message from Sidney's phone that says, "You are interesting to me, Caleb." Right after that, another message from his phone, "You can tell me anything." And then there's a message about 12 minutes after that that says, "Sorry, I'm falling asleep." Then there's a message from Sidney's phone that says, "Well, damn." And then there's another message right after that that says, "I'm sorry, long day."
Were all those deleted?
Yes, they were.
And does this conversation continue on to the 17th, which is prior to the 18th when Heather goes missing?
It does.
Okay, if you don't mind, tell us what's on the phone then.
So we're starting back down here. This is actually going to be 11:45 p.m. on the 16th. From Sidney's phone, it says, "FYI, I have never needed lube for myself, comma, ever." And then there's a message just a few seconds right after that. It says, "Boxers." Another message right after that, around the same time, "Thank you." Another message right after that from Sidney's phone that says, "Oh, you wear undies, ... And then there's a call that comes in from this number, 585-369-9704. And then there's an instant message right after that from Sidney's phone that says, "Dude, I think your mom just called." Right after that from Sidney's phone, "I gave her a fake name." And then there's a message 8 seconds after that that just says, "What?" with a question mark. And then 4 minutes after that, a message from Sidney's phone that says, "I told her my name was Terry." And then a message shortly after that that just says, "Yes, just now."
Now, let me ask you something. Were those messages deleted?
All the messages were deleted. The incoming phone call was not deleted.
Okay. But everything else was deleted?
Yes.
Okay. And somebody gave somebody else the name Terry?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know the name of Heather Elvis's dad?
I mean, I do now. It's Terry.
Okay. And do these messages continue on again on to the 17th, the day before she goes missing?
They do.
Tell me about those messages.
Okay. So you have again, we're still on the 16th at 11:49 p.m. From Sidney's phone. Someone just called from New York and asked why I was calling her underage son. And then you have a message right after that that says, "That's weird, IDK, I'm sorry." And then there's a message from Sidney's phone again. It's just 4 question marks. Message again that comes in. It says, "Didn't say anything, but I'm not underage. I'm 18. And then there's another message that says, "I didn't say anything, I mean." And then there's an outgoing message from Sidney's phone that says, "That was weird." There's another message right after that that says, "I'm sorry." And then the message from Sidney's phone outgoing, "Is this her number?" And then there is another message that goes out from Sidney's phone, more likely a picture. And then the response is, "That's my number." And then the number from Sidney's phone, there's a number that just says 585-369. And then the next message says 9704.
Okay. Now, Now, do these messages continue on from the 16th to the 17th?
They do.
Can we hear those messages?
Okay. So again, we're at 11:55 p.m. on the 16th. There's a message that just says yes. And right after that, there's a message from Sidney's phone that says, so does she read your text or have something on your phone where she sees everything you do? And the response is no, she doesn't. And there's another outgoing message from Sidney's phone that says, well, how did she know we talked last night and why would she care? And again, a message from Sidney's phone says creepy. Another message from Sidney's phone that says, I don't blame you, but geez, don't need a crazy mom hating on me because I think her son is handsome. And then the response is, don't worry about it. And then again, outgoing, now we're on to the 17th of December now. From Sidney's phone says, you sure? She sounded pissed. And again, another message from Sidney's phone says, and now I missed my pick. The response is, okay, I'm sorry. And then from Sidney's phone, outgoing again is a message, I deactivated my account. Again, from Sidney's phone, shortly right after that, just in case she was digging into it. Again, response from Sidney's phone, not your fault. Another response from Sidney's phone, just delete all of this in case she saw the messages maybe. And then the response right after that says, yeah, I did that too, and ha ha, yeah. And then another response from Sidney's phone, I put my number on FB though, so maybe she saw that. And this was, on the 17th, right after midnight, 12:09 a.m.
And were they deleted?
Yes, they were.
And these are all from his phone?
Yes, these are all from excerpts from Sidney's phone.
Okay.
At 1 p.m., there's a message from Heather's phone to Sidney's phone. It's just a period.
Okay, so now we're on the afternoon before the victim went missing.
Correct.
Okay, tell me about these messages.
All right. So again, there's a message from Sidney's phone, a glowing message that says, and that's not even Ashley in the picture you sent. Right after that, there's a response that says, Charlie who, question mark. All I know is that a woman is messaging my son and is claiming to be an older woman along with a FB page. I don't want any of you contacting my son and offering plane tickets to come there. I'm just a mother protecting her son. And then there's right after that, a message from Sidney's phone that says, I'm a very strict uncle too. This is my phone. She's home now. From what I see, the boy started the pictures first. And the response is picture to a 40-year-old woman, question mark, question mark, question mark. He's punished as well. I want this to stop. Another message, pictures of him standing in the bathroom with his shirt off. Right after that, again, this is from 3:31 p.m. on the 17th. From Sidney's phone, it's done. Ashley has been punished, and I feel sure age won't be text messaging anyone for a very long time. The response is, awesome, thank you. And then the response from Sidney's phone says, no, comma, pictures of him naked, lots of them. And then the response right after that says, no, question mark, cops had 9, if those. And then they put none. And then the response from Sidney's phone says, there was 3. The response that came back was, that's strange. And then Sidney's phone replies, how old is your boy? The response right after that is 16. And the response after that is, that's why I called and said, stop TXT my underage son. The response after that says, I'm thinking it was the older woman in the pic and the FB page pic was same older woman. And then there was a response from Sidney's phone, her too. And the response from Sidney's phone again was, he told her he was 19.
And they were all deleted?
Yes, they were.
Now let me ask you something. Did you also do an extraction of Tammy Moore, his wife?
I did.
Okay. And did you see the messages on her phone?
I did.
Now, let me ask you something. There's no number on that, can you please bring me orange juice? Thank you, yes ma'am.
Correct.
Who are those messages to and from?
So these are from Tammy Moore's, or what is assigned as Tammy Moore's cell phone. It's 843-385-3174, because they're on her phone as outgoing messages.
So you see them on her phone as outgoing, and then you see the message?
Correct.
Okay, so who's asking, can you please bring me an orange juice with the pot sticker?
So this would be from Tammy. She's asking, Sidney, can you please bring me an orange juice with the pot stickers? She says, thank you. And then he replies to Tammy, because it's on Tammy's phone as well, yes, ma'am.
So he replied to her, yes, ma'am.
Correct.
At what time in the morning on December 18th?
So these would be at 4:37, 4:38, and 4:38.
Okay. So now the two phones are talking back and forth.
That's correct.
Okay, now let me ask you something. All those messages we saw before, were those on Tammy's phone?
No.
Okay, so those messages were between Sidney's phone and somebody other than Tammy, his wife?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the 18th is kind of what we've focused on. Did you look at the messages after Heather Elvis went missing to see then what the content of the phone looked like?
I did.
And if you don't mind, show us those messages.
Okay. So we're down here to shortly after midnight. This would be basically 12:07 a.m. on the 21st. This is a message from, this is actually from Tammy's phone. It says, I know what Case wants from Santa. And then right after that, from Sidney's phone, says, well, it's about time he told somebody. Then a message from Tammy's phone says, Legos, of course, aliens, he said. And then Sidney replies, what about Christian? Then Tammy says, no idea. Nikki asked for the Friends boat or high school. All of it was sold out at the store. And Tammy replies, Carrie's back on, let's watch. And then Sidney replies, well, that should be fun then. And then there's a text message that comes in from Sonic right after that. And then there's another message from Sidney's phone that says, don't come today, we'll see you next week. Another message from Sidney's phone that says, good luck. Someone responds, okay. It's 15 seconds after that, so the response was okay. And then there's some phone calls, and then there's an incoming phone call here at the very top. All these around the 21st of December.
Okay, I want to look at something. Let me get the E. If you don't mind, can you take us back to the pot stickers comment at 3:40? Okay. The last, or the message this is at 4:37.
Correct.
Can you please bring me an orange juice?
Yes.
And you looked at Tammy's phone.
Correct.
So you know those messages are between him and his wife, correct?
Yes.
And those messages were after her last phone call at 3:41.
Correct.
Okay, so after 3:41, she's telling him, bring me pot stickers, and he's saying, yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay. But you also looked at the messages prior to 3:41 on 12:18, didn't you?
Yes.
And you looked at Tammy's phone and his phone.
Correct.
And we looked at several days, to be fair, 16th, 17th, and earlier in the 18th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Were there any messages between Tammy and Sidney during that time frame?
No, ma'am.
In fact, did you see any messages between the two of them in the entire month of December?
Well, not until we get up here to the 18th, but prior to that, no. There was no messages between them.
Okay. So all of a sudden, there's no messages, Heather's last phone call was at 3:41, and shortly after that, now the two phones are talking.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, we saw some pretty, I don't know what you want to call it, type messages prior to the 18th, sexual in nature, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they were mentioning some guy named Caleb, is that right?
That's correct.
And it was talking about send me a pic.
Yes.
And talking kind of sexual stuff?
Yes.
Okay. After the 18th at 3:41, do you see those type of messages anymore?
No, ma'am.
And does it now go back to Sidney and his wife talking about, show me your next messages. Now we back on Legos. Is that right?
That's correct.
So if something happens prior to December 18th at 3:41,
Yes.
and in a very short time after that, the two phones are talking,
Correct.
and they're no longer talking that same talk.
Correct.
Thank you, Your Honor. This time the state calls Donald DiMarino. Oh, we'll just come right up here, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. If you're speaking to the microphone, state your full name and spell your last name.
Donald Allen DiMarino, D-E-M-A-R-I-N-O.
Hey, Donald, how you doing?
Good.
Do you know who I am?
Yes, sir.
How you know me?
Talking to you.
We talked before, that's right. Now look, obviously, you didn't just come from the spring formal, so tell this jury where you're living right now.
I don't have
J. Rubin?
Yeah, J. Rubin.
That's the Horry County Detention Center?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and, so they ain't sitting here guessing, go ahead and tell them why you're in there, Donald. What your charges are, you ain't gotta, just tell them what you're charged with.
I got a couple PED autos, possession of a stolen firearm, and possession of a stolen.
But you ain't been convicted of none of that stuff?
No.
Okay. You missed court, is that right?
Yeah.
And that's why we picked you up?
Yeah.
Or we didn't, but somebody did.
Yes, sir.
Donald, do you know Sidney Moore?
Yes.
How you know him, sir?
He's my family.
How are you related to him?
Through marriage, my cousin Tammy.
So Tammy's your cousin?
Yes.
Okay. Did you used to hang out with him back in the day?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you go over to their house?
Yes.
In 2013?
Yeah.
In 2014?
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time you were over there?
Yes.
About when was that? And you ain't got to be exact. I know it's been a long time ago.
14, 15.
Or like?
Around there.
Okay, that's fair enough. What were you doing over there?
I was there for a cookout.
Okay. Was it daytime or nighttime?
Daytime, going on nighttime.
Fair enough. Tell me a little bit about what happened there. Did you talk to Tammy?
A little bit, yeah.
Did you talk to Sidney?
A little bit, yeah.
And this was obviously after Heather Elvis went missing.
Yes.
Did you know about that whole disappearance?
Yes.
Do you remember what you and Sidney talked about, kind
of? Sure, yeah.
Did he show you anything?
Yeah.
And how'd that conversation start? What was that about? Was it about the weather?
No.
What was that about?
Heather.
Okay. Do you remember what he said?
Not word for word, no, but
in vague terms.
Basically that he showed me a picture on a phone.
He showed you his phone?
A phone. I don't know if it was his phone.
But he had it in his possession?
Yes, sir.
And who was? Do you know who that picture was of?
I'm pretty sure.
Who? Tell this jury who that picture was of.
Heather Elvis.
Had you ever? And you've seen pictures of her since?
Yes.
And so so has that confirmed in your mind that the picture Sidney showed you was a picture of her?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Donald, I want you to answer me this question. Did that picture upset you?
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that life kind of has took a downward spiral since you saw that photograph?
Yeah.
Things were kind of not as good now for you as they were back then?
Yeah.
Donald, I want you to answer me this question. After seeing that picture of Heather, did he tell you when that picture was taken?
No.
Okay. In that picture, did Heather look like she was under her own free will?
No.
Let me ask you this. After seeing that picture of Heather back in 2014, do you expect this family to ever hear from her again?
No.
Please answer any questions the defendants may have.
Mr. DiMarino, what charges are you at the detention center for now?
Couple of counts of B&E autos, possession of stolen firearm, possession of a stolen vehicle, and
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
credit card fraud.
Okay, so that's B&E auto, possession of a stolen firearm, possession of a stolen vehicle, and B&E auto. Did I get that? Credit card fraud. Okay. What about your prior record? What have you been convicted of in the past, sir?
I got a burglary charge, and a couple of drug charges.
Burglary charge and drug charges. Okay. Got a problem with drugs, Mr. DiMarino?
Yeah.
Addiction issue?
Yeah.
Your drug, is it heroin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long have you been dealing with that addiction, sir?
About 6 years.
Solicitor's office giving you any help for that?
No.
Let me be clear about this. Does your heroin addiction have anything to do with Heather Elvis's case?
No.
Okay, because the solicitor tried to suggest that maybe you had a downward spiral after you looked at this picture.
Okay.
You were kind of dealing with drugs before that?
A little bit.
Okay.
Not.
Okay. Mr. DiMarino, who was at the house other than you and Sidney at this time?
A lot of people. A lot of family.
Okay, how many people? Give us a guess.
More
than 10, more than 20?
Maybe 10 people. I don't know.
Okay, so there are about 10 people at the house. And you said that Mr. Moore showed you a picture on a phone. Okay. Did he show it?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Did he show this picture to anybody else?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, so while you were standing there looking at the picture, was there anybody else standing there with you?
No.
Okay. So to the best of your knowledge, no one else has ever seen this picture?
No.
Anywhere?
I have no idea.
Now, when you and Sidney are standing there looking at this picture, did you happen to take a picture of the picture?
No.
Have you seen this picture since?
No.
Has the solicitor's office brought you a picture and said, hey, is this the picture you saw?
No.
Okay. So no one else saw the picture?
I guess not.
To the best of your knowledge,
Yeah.
no one else saw it. And you haven't seen that picture like today, have you?
No.
Now, how many times have you talked to the solicitors about this case?
Handful of times. Couple.
5 maybe?
Yeah.
And I know that's a guess, an estimate. But in those 5 times, have they ever given you a picture and asked you if that was the picture you're referring to?
No.
Do you know what device this picture came off of?
I don't.
Okay, was it on a phone?
Yeah.
Do you know whose phone this was?
No.
Do you know if it was Sidney's phone?
I'm taking it was his.
You're assuming it was Sidney's phone? Okay. So if it was Sidney's phone, well, you can't answer that. And there was a conversation that went with this picture. Did anybody overhear this conversation?
No.
So it's just you and Sidney talking?
Yeah.
He just brought you aside and said, let me talk to you.
Yeah.
And when did this take place again?
2014, 15, I believe.
Okay.
After they were released.
Okay. Is that a tattoo on your chest?
Yeah.
What is that a tattoo of?
2 Guns and Roses.
Okay. As in the band Guns N' Roses?
I mean, sort of like, yeah.
Or it's just 2 guns and...
2 Guns and Roses.
Why would you have a tattoo of 2 guns on your chest?
Why not?
And when you saw this picture back in 2014 or 2015, whenever it was, did you tell the police?
Soon after, yeah.
Soon after?
Yeah, they came to visit me while I was in jail.
Did you tell family members?
No.
Did you tell any inmates at the jail?
I talked to an inmate about it, yeah.
Okay, so you told some inmates what you saw.
I told one inmate what I saw.
To one inmate what you saw. Did you tell that inmate that you had the picture?
No.
Okay, because you didn't have the picture.
No.
Did you take Mr. Moore's phone or ask him if you could hold it?
No.
Did you ask him to send you a copy of that picture?
No.
So the only thing that we have to go on today is your word that you saw a picture in 2014 or 2015.
Yeah.
Now you've been in jail before. You've been in jail long before, right?
Yes.
It's not your first rodeo.
No.
Okay. Now when you're at the detention center, do they allow you to make phone calls?
Yeah.
And in order to make a phone call, you got to make it collect?
Yeah.
And they give you a PIN number to go with the calls?
No.
Or you don't have a PIN number at the jail? Okay.
I got an HC number, like my inmate number, but no, no PIN number.
Okay, so you don't have a PIN number to make telephone calls?
No.
Do you know if the phone calls at the jail are recorded?
Yeah, they're recorded.
Do you recall making a phone call to your mother from the jail in which you said that you made this story up?
Yes, I do.
So you told your mother you made it up?
Yeah.
No further questions.
No, why did you tell your mother that you made the story up?
Because I've been in and out of trouble, and I wasn't trying to put anything else on my mom.
But did you make the story up?
No.
As a matter of fact, how many times have you talked to me, Ms. Livesay, or my investigator over the years? Ballpark.
Good bit.
Have you ever told any other version of events other than to us, other than what you're saying here today?
Never.
Have you ever lied to law enforcement about what you saw on that telephone?
No.
Now, Mr. Galmore made a big deal about the charges that you got right now, and are in J. Rubin Long for right now. Have I ever talked to you about those charges?
No.
As a matter of fact, what do I tell you about those?
We cannot talk about it.
So have I promised you anything for being here today to tell this?
No.
How about threaten you? Anytime that you and I have been alone, has anybody from my office or law enforcement ever threatened you and said, if you don't go testify, something bad's going to happen, like you're going to get the book thrown at you or anything like that?
No, never.
Have you ever had any beef with Tammy or Sidney, Donald?
No.
Were y'all on the outs when you came forward with this story?
No.
Why did you come forward with this story, Donald?
I had to get it off me.
That's fair.
Was it weighing on you?
Yeah.
Do you expect to get any help from me for your charges for testifying here today?
No.
Do you have any reason, Donald, to lie to this jury today?
No.
Do you have any beef with Sidney Moore?
No.
Why are you testifying right now? If I haven't promised you anything, Donald, and I haven't threatened you in any way, did I make you come out here?
No.
Why are you here, Donald?
Because it's the right thing.
Because it's the right thing. Thank you, Donald. Thank you very much.
Recross, yeah.
Mr. DiMarino, do you want help with your pending criminal charges?
No.
You don't want any consideration from the solicitor's office?
No.
Do you want help for your drug addiction?
That would be great, but no.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but no.
Okay. Now, you told the solicitors and you told this jury that you saw a picture.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And you also told your mother that you made that story up,
Yeah.
correct? Thank you, sir.
Right, so you may step down, sir. Let me call his next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will call Jessica Adams. Yes, Your Honor. At this time, if the court deems it appropriate, I think the family of Heather would like to address the court.
I'll be delighted to hear from him, and it is certainly appropriate time for them to be heard.
Debbie, Terry, come on, come stand right here. Just give your name for the court.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Terry Elvis.
Don't you worry, you take your time.
It's been a long 5 years. Almost 6. Every day, you wake up, it's the same thing. Over and over. You can call it kidnapping. It sounds like it's just a one and done thing, but it's not. It's every day. So for the past almost 6 years, it's a continuous assault. It hasn't gone away. No one will tell us where our daughter is at. At this point, you can give him a day if you would just tell us where she's at. But I don't think he'll do it. But we're willing to do that. I would agree to anything at this point just to get to that part of our life and get it closed. Short of that, I'd ask that you run these things, these 2 sentences, you don't run concurrent. Do it all. I know it's within your power, I know it's within your judgment. And I know that it's been a strange journey between all of us. But you've always been honorable. And I defer to your judgment.
Elvis, thank you so much, and let me just tell you something, sir, as a father to a father. What you've had to endure, no person, no father should ever have to endure, no mother should, and certainly I can only speak for being a father. And I don't fault you for some of the things that have been said or felt. In fact, I understand them, and you don't fault yourself for that, sir. And my only wish for you and your family and all of your loved ones, and I know that, and if I thought for a second that just telling you to walk out would satisfy what you're looking for, I would do it in a heartbeat. I really would, because I understand and I appreciate how magnanimous that statement, what you just made is, that you're not looking to punish, you just want some closure for a lot of things. I just hope that somehow this will bring some peace to you, sir, and that you can start, you'll never, and you're right, it will never come back to what it was the day before she left. But I hope you can find some peace in your life and enjoy what's left, and that's what you're entitled to, sir. Thank you very much. You bet.
Your Honor, we have received the jury's verdict. We respectfully disagree with it. He denies any involvement. He will continue to do so. And we understand that the court has a decision to make. We ask Your Honor to simply take into consideration the fact that he did not have a prior record before all of this, take into consideration the positive things that he's done in the time that he has been at the correctional so far, and we would ask the court to temper justice with mercy in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. More, is there anything you wish to say, sir? You don't have to, but I'll afford you the opportunity to do it. Okay.
If I could give them closure, I would. I mean, anything I tell them would be a lie. There's nothing I can tell them to give them any closure. I understand I have children at home. I get it. There's just nothing I can give them for closure.
Right. Well, thank you, sir.
And I know they suffered probably way more than I have, yes, and I feel bad for them, I really do. Nothing I can give them. I'm sorry that I can't.
Well, I'm confident of that as well. Thank you, sir. All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Well, the one thing that I've said over and over, and I don't know that I appreciated it as much when I was a lawyer as I do now as a judge, because my heart goes out to the Elvis family and the extended families. There's just no words to describe what anything can be said to alleviate what you have suffered and will suffer. And I mentioned this early on that I saw the hurt my father with his father being tragically murdered and how he had to deal with that his entire life. And he was, as I said before, he was a bitter man when he took his last breath at 81. I know that there's a reason now for having a court of common pleas and a general sessions court, because it's that common pleas deals with everything you've talked about, your loss, what you've experienced. That's what I was privileged to do. Some of my practice was representing persons that suffered damages and trying to get compensation for their damages. What I do in a sentence can never be construed as compensation for anything. It's not. And it should never be considered that way, because that's left for another branch of our court. And in this case, I understand your wish, and if I were standing there, I'd be saying the same thing. I really would. But in this case, Ms. Moore has been convicted when a concurrent sentence was imposed. And what I've heard in this case as evidence, and I don't have to conclude this, it's just a fact, that I think there was a conspiracy, was no question. There was a conspiracy. The dominant figure, we all can have opinions about that, but I think my opinion is that she was the dominant figure in this action. Just from everything, and probably the most compelling one was the testimony of the gentleman we worked with Ford to me. And for that reason, I'm going to do this, so I'll let the Department of Corrections figure out what time he's entitled to.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to make that call because I he was punished for that one, and he's serving the time to punish for the obstruction. If the department chooses to give him credit, so be it. I don't choose to do that in my sentence. But I will sentence him to 30 years on each one and run them concurrent. And I hope he'll continue to do something that he's doing. It doesn't surprise me. I know it was mentioned early on that I knew his mother and father, and I do. And I was privileged to know them. And the one thing I have come to know, the Bible speaks to this, I think it's Luke, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I'm paraphrasing. But I don't find fault with that. I know what he was given. I know the people. And that also is another reason for what I'm doing. Good luck to you, sir. Thank you, sir. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Thank you.
As Sidney was found guilty of the kidnap of Heather Elvis and sentenced to 30 years in prison, his wife, Tammy Moorer, also went to trial, and in October 2018, Tammy was found guilty and received 60 years in prison. Heather Elvis is still technically missing to this day.
First in New at 11, Sidney and Tammy Moorer lost appeals to overturn their convictions.
Both of them serving prison sentences right now in connection with the 2013 disappearance of Heather Elvis in Horry County. Documents show that the South Carolina Court of Appeals affirmed their convictions on kidnapping and conspiracy charges. Sidney, of course, on the left there, found guilty on an obstruction charge in 2017 and then found guilty 2 years later in a retrial on the kidnapping charge.
He got 30 years, and right now he's serving that at Lee Correctional in Bishopville. Moorer's wife, Tammy, is also serving a 30-year sentence for kidnapping in the Elvis case. Now, Heather Elvis was last heard from on December 18, 2013. Nobody has been found, but authorities say she's presumed dead. You'll find all of our coverage on the Elvis case right now at WBTW.com.